It is the 11 Dubcast. I'm Johnny. He's George. Let's get right into it. We got a lot of stuff going on recruiting wise. We got some things to talk about with practices, even though it's in the dead of summer. And then we'll talk a little bit about Ryan Day's comments on the new landscape of college football. But before we get into all that, how are you, George? How's life? How are things?
Oh, I'm sick as a dog.
You know what? And usually it's me being Captain Trips, but I wish you the best. I hope that you recover very quickly. George is over there chugging the NyQuil. That's fine. You got to do what you got to do.
Dog. Don't ask me if I'm all right, as Ed Reed would say.
That's right. One of the really just one of the most badass things any football player has ever said. I love it. All right, so first we got some recruiting stuff to get into. Pretty cool. 4-star Faheem Delane, number 2 safety in the 2025 class, has committed to Ohio State. And look, I think a lot of people like to, especially in recruiting, run with narratives, right? Like this idea, like, okay, this is going to be the best ever, or, Ohio State's got this, the momentum's going, they're going to get everybody. In this case, I feel like all the talk around Tim Walton and what he's doing on the recruiting trail is every bit as real as what we've seen with Brian Hartline and all this other stuff. It's not a meme. It's not a joke. Like, this guy has transformed himself. Not that he was ever a bad recruiter, but just his stretch of recruiting successes is kind of unbelievable at this point. And right now they've got the number 1 cornerback. And again, right now is probably the operative word in this phrase that I'm about to say, but they've got the number 1 cornerback in the class. They've got the number 2 quarterback in the class. They've got the number 2 safety in the class. They got the number 26 safety in the class, which it would be a good get for anybody. It's not a balanced right now. It's not a super balanced score sheet in terms of what the recruiting wins have been, but I don't really care if nobody can pass on this team for the next 3 to 4 years. Like, I'm fine with that.
I just think it's funny that, again, it speaks to the spoiled position we're in as Ohio State fans. That
100%.
When the beat confirmed this news to us today, the immediate reaction from Ramsey was not a gripe whatsoever, just wondering if Day will ever have a balanced recruiting class.
Yeah.
Just like, our
right.
immediate response to getting the second highest rated player at his position in this class is,
why aren't there more offensive linemen?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
We're just never going to be happy,
right,
regardless of how many how many highly rated players we get at any area of the field. We're always going to be wondering, when's the next one coming in? How are we going to fill the holes, address the gaps? That's the only time we're ever going to be satisfied. And then we'll win a national championship and enjoy it for 15 minutes and start stressing about the next one.
Right. Yeah, it does feel like that though, right? Where it's like, oh, this is great for like 5 seconds. Yeah. And then we immediately start figuring out ways that we can be upset about it. And I think that's kind of baked into being an Ohio State fan in general. I did an interview a long time ago. This is before Oregon came to Ohio State. And obviously we know how that game turned out. But before the game, Ohio State was huge favorites. And I was talking to this Oregon radio station, and they were just asking me about the mentality of Ohio State fans. And they were basically implying that Ohio State fans were like, is it, as an Ohio State fan, isn't it awesome just being super confident all the time? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what I was like, you do not understand. Like, Ohio State fans exist on this precipice between like eternal glory and forever doom. And we're always vacillating back and forth between those two things. Like, there is no middle ground of us being super chill about anything.
Aloft in our scarlet and ivory towers, just waiting for the fall.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're just counting, like, yeah, we're in a house of cards and we're just counting like how many are starting to wobble. Like, that's how Ohio State fans feel. That's not the reality. The reality is that you've got this unbelievable recruiting class and have gotten recruiting classes that have been unbelievable for the past, I don't know, however many years. But that's not the way it feels when you're like, oh, God, I'm really going to use an offensive lineman. That's not great. It's like, you just got to learn to sometimes enjoy what you have. And I hope that people hearing this go on the website, check out the write up that we did that Garrick put up there about Faheem Delane. His highlight reel is fantastic. The guy is big. I mean, he's a thumper. He's the kind of guy that you could also honestly see maybe like moving over to linebacker at some point. He's just super athletic, super rangy. A lot of good things to like about him. And yeah, that's awesome. Like there's no, like I said, 10 out of 10, 0 points. Like I have nothing. I have no points to give on that. I think it's fantastic. It's a great get. Now, a lot of that comes with the caveat that it's super early in the recruiting process. You have no idea what's going to happen between now and, when he actually arrives on campus or after he arrives on campus. But this is also the program that was able to hold together, a 5-guy, quarterback room and pretty much everybody that they brought on after the end of the season. So who knows what's, going to happen. I feel like Ohio State's been pretty good at keeping guys on campus recently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm content with where things are at. It is I know we just made the joke about, feeling spoiled with the the class lacking seeming balance, but it is for the position that the secondary already is in, it's interesting that 3 of the top 4 rated players in this class now are members of the secondary when the top 2 were already cornerbacks.
Right.
And again, even expanding further on the spoiled feeling, it's really easy to forget that 3-4 years ago we were lamenting the position the defense was in relative to all the success that the offense was having under Ryan Day. And I think it's pretty incredible how quickly things have turned around under Jim Knowles, although obviously the recruiting success that we're seeing now goes further than that. But we really do need to just kind of cherish where things are at, I think, a little bit more, because as easy as it is for us to complain about, where the big name offensive line recruits further than Carter Lowe, the number 7 offensive tackle, who's currently the only offensive lineman, I believe, committed in that same class. We're still in a pretty good position, all things considered, that I think most schools would gladly, or fans rather, would gladly trade places with us in a moment.
Oh yeah, they'd kill for it. So that's all good. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be obviously a great addition. I think like you said, it's not a bad place to be. Speaking of fans, this is just kind of another thing, a little bit of news that came through here recently, the past few days. So Ohio State announced that they're actually going to be opening up practices. So I think that's 4 practices of preseason camp starting in August, and $50 a pop will get you in to watch an Ohio State practice. And I want to ask you this, assuming that you're not 11 Warriors, let's say this is all pre-11 Warriors, would you have paid $50 to get into an Ohio State football practice?
No.
Okay. Why not? Like, I find that interesting because I thought about this and I was like, yeah, I might have dropped 50 to get in and see that.
I would have saved up for the Ryan Day season kickoff luncheon, which costs what?
That's $2,500.
Right, yeah. I'm trying to do the math in my head.
That's a lot of practices.
Yeah, it's 50 times more.
Yeah,
so
right.
Yeah, for the price of 50 Ohio State practices, I could go get a table at one of those Ohio State luncheons. I think I'd rather save up for that.
I think if I had been in college,
I would rather spend $50 on a spring game ticket. That
really?
feels like a better, 100%. That feels like a better value to me. I get, you can't get your gear up for a walkthrough, man. I'm sorry. As a fan, I want to remove the fan. I don't want to put pressure on the players while they're practicing. There's already enough on them for the game.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I want to remove prying eyes from the situation and let them own their craft in private and work out their mistakes away from the scrutiny of the public. I don't want to put any additional undue pressure on these young athletes trying to sharpen their skills in anticipation of the big show. They don't need the public coming down on them, expecting them to perform in the depths of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Just let them do their thing and work out their kinks and mistakes so that they are in the best position to succeed come game day. That's what I want. They don't need any more pressure and any more prying eyes, and they don't need my $50 either.
Well, maybe they do need your $50. I was seeing some reports out there. I think somebody put out on Twitter that Ohio State had like $20 million or some insane amount of money for NIL. And like, we talked about this last week. They need revenue
$50
generators.
that could go to a collective or the dry goods store.
And maybe that's what they're getting ready for when they're talking about paying players. They'll sell 750 tickets for each session, right? Which, by the way, a limit of 10 tickets per order. And I'm like, I guess they're trying to do that to like stop scalpers and stuff. But, honestly, like whatever. If somebody wants to do it all and just have a private practice by himself, I think that would be pretty funny. Like some insane person just like, yes, all for me. But that's 37 grand. That's 37 large per. I just did the math. I'm not going to pretend I did that in my head. I pulled up the calculator app. But that's over $37,000 per practice. You do that times 4. That's over $100,000, $120-some thousand. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good chunk of change for 4 practices, and they're going to sell out, right? Like it's. I think we can pretty much say definitively that those are all going to be sold, right?
Time will tell, I guess.
I think they're going to sell out instantly. I think
don't know what the market is for them.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think there's enough people out there. I think they'll gobble those up instantaneously. I think that's as far as the money making venture goes, I think that's probably the best way they can possibly do it.
I mean, I think the better tie-in might have been to be like, if you make it seem like a more, I don't know, exclusive thing. Like if you make the $50 donation to the collective or whatever, you, instead of calling it like a ticket, they'll say you get exclusive access to the Ohio State August practices.
Well, you could go on the 1870 website and you could get similar things. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, so it could have, you got to go really aggressive with the marketing here instead of just, saying it as, oh, we're selling tickets to practice and they're going to go to NIL. We can get more creative than that. You got to use some marketing tricks. Use the business jargon they teach you over at Fisher to
get Don Draper to come down and, like.
Put some spin on it.
Imagine what it was like running through the grass in your backyard as TreVeyon Henderson
the grass at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know, man. When I was in college, if somebody had told me I got to see like a practice in person, I would have lost my mind. I would have thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I probably would have dropped $50 to go do that. Like once. I don't know that I would do it multiple times or anything like that, but I absolutely would have wanted to see what that looked like in person. And when I got to do it, when I started doing 11 Warriors stuff, I was pretty geeked out. I couldn't believe that I was able to see all the stuff at practice and watch how it functioned, because I didn't know any of that. I'd never played football. I knew in theory what they were doing, but I'd never been on a college football field like that. So I don't know. It's a cool experience. I do think it's kind of funny though that so let's say they do sell out and they get like 100 grand plus. That's really kind of a drop in the bucket. That's the other thing. Like if you have to pay, I don't know, let's say you're paying TreVeyon Henderson like $1 million or $2 million to stay at Ohio State. Well, great. Okay, now you only have to do that like 20 more times and you're set, right? Like that's the funny thing about it, is that even though the money involved is pretty massive, the money involved to keep these guys here and to pay them, once they get here is still even more massive than that.
Well, here's it, $750. Oh, for each session though. So okay,
right.
yeah. At first, I thought it was like that's not even $38,000. But if it's 4 sessions, then
Right,
it'll
right.
be like $120K or something.
Yeah, yeah. Which again is good money, but not like great money in the grand scheme of things. So I understand why they're doing it, but I think it also goes to show why you're going to see things like, the NCAA approving corporate logos on the field and the potentiality of them appearing on players' jerseys at some point and all that kind of stuff. Which, man, that would be that would be strange to see, but I think that's just kind of where we're going with what we've got. So.
I have to be honest. I would rather watch best damn band in the land practice than an Ohio State football practice.
Why is that? Do you think it's because you played football for a while and you kind of know the rhythms and it's not like that particularly, new
I think
to
that's probably part of it.
Okay.
I've literally like I've been in Woody Hayes Athletic Center for like the camp before, not necessarily fall practice, but yeah, I think just knowing how the behind the scenes kind of operates just kind of has disenchanted me from the process. Maybe if you're someone that, and it's hard for me to put myself in these shoes, but like somebody that is enchanted by football but didn't necessarily ever have the opportunity to play it, this is more of an appealing thing for you. And I'm sure that there's probably a handful of those people. I might be underestimating the market if there's 750 unique individuals over 4 different days that are going to be interested in that in the immediate Columbus area. But
I think it kind of depends. Like, I think it depends what the level is. And like, I swam for a long time, right? Like I swam competitively from the time I was a little kid till I graduated high school. And if somebody said, hey, you can, drop $50 and see like the US Olympic team, like practicing, I got to tell you something. Watching a swim practice is probably going to be the most boring experience I can possibly imagine because it's literally just people doing laps in the pool. But I would still be interested to see that because I want to know, I don't know. I just want to know what their practice looks like. I want to know how many yards they're swimming. Well,
I just said I wanted to watch a bunch of music nerds rehearse their choreography.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's what I'm saying. So I think it depends on, what the skill level is. Are you going to watch some high school team practice, their band? No. But are you going to watch Ohio State, the best damn band in the land, practice? Right. Maybe. Yeah. And I think it kind of depends on what level you're looking at and what you're used to. For me, I never played football. So, seeing a really good college football team, that's a big deal to me. I would be like, wow, that's really interesting. I don't know too much about that. But if you played football through high school and all that, maybe that's not as, because I wouldn't pay $50 to go to see the Ohio State swimming team, right? Like I don't, I know what they're doing. Like that's not that interesting to me. But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting prospect. I think there's enough people out there to get 750 tickets sold for each of these 4 practices for Ohio State fans. There's got to be, just the fact that you're, ostensibly closer to the players, you'll get to identify coaches, all that kind of stuff. When I went to the spring game, we were sitting in the stands and, just the way people are talking, it's like that for them is a similar experience, I think, where they're like, oh, I know that guy. He's going to be good, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people are just talking out of their ass, but like, that's still fun. Like that's still part of the experience, right? To have that kind of insider information. And I think a lot of people will treat that, in that way. So, and more power to them. Honestly, I think it'll be cool. I think it's a good thing to try to raise money for NIL. And I think it's a good way to, get fans more involved. Now it'll be funny if fans have access to more practices than the media does leading up to, the beginning of the season, but we'll see how that plays out. So
I want to see the quality of these sunglasses that come with the tickets. That's what I'll be most curious about.
They got to do the crazy like ski goggle shades that the kids are doing now. A coworker of mine's got a son who's like 11 years old, and he had a birthday party at their house, and like there were like 10 boys, all 10 and 11 years old, running around our house, and they all had these shades on. They're like, I'm the Rizzler, and it was just the most It's the worst thing ever. So I hope that's what they give
will
out.
Also include a pair of commemorative 2024 Ohio State training camp Zoomer goggles.
Zoomer goggles. Let's do it. Yes, so that's what they're getting. They're getting the Rizzler goggles. That's great. Zoomer goggles. I'm looking this up right now. I want to see if there's like, oh yeah, that's what they're getting. They're basically getting the. God, I hope somebody gets their hands on those. That's going to be fantastic.
I was just making a joke. I wasn't actually serious.
Oh, well, now I'm disappointed.
I just replaced the words of the article sunglasses with Zoomer goggles.
Oh, I thought that was like some kind of like brand. Oh, well,
no.
My day's ruined. That's all right.
But this is my point. There's so many more funky marketing ways you could dress this up that they're just not choosing to do. That, you got to
get a minor league
all
baseball,
the stops if you want my $50. Otherwise, I'm going to go watch the Nerds.
Fair enough. By the way, Ryan Day, for his part, said that he does support the new revenue sharing model coming to college football, which, of course, he would say that. Why would he not say that? Of course he's going, no, but he's not going to get up there on the mic and be like Dabo and be like, no, I wish we didn't pay any players, and it would just be great if you just work for free. Of course he's going to say that. Every coach is going to say that with any kind of idea of keeping their job in the next few years. But and he has caveats, and he talks about how much needs to be determined and everything like that. But to me, that's kind of the default position of all the coaches at this point, which is, yeah, we got to wait and see, but also, yes, give the players anything they want because we want them on our team. So, and that speaks to the shift. It speaks to the power balance that's going on in college football. And there's a huge shift in that from schools and coaches to players at this point. And I think that's really what's freaking a lot of people out at this point, beyond the aesthetics of, having more corporate logos and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the more noteworthy and controversial part of the comments he made on that was saying, he doesn't want the walk-on position to be eliminated, right, and that it's an important part of college football and has been for a while, and that probably doesn't think any coach would tell you that they want to see walk-ons go away. So it's given that's been one of the predicted early casualties of the forthcoming change in the landscape. It'll be interesting to see how much the NCAA takes into account the sentiment from the coaches and not just the coaches, but also people that are fans of the sport and the opportunity that it creates for students to become student athletes. How much consideration is the NCAA going to give to that, to all those parties, in the interest of keeping that in place relative to the changes that are coming? So it'll be interesting to see, given how much universally agreed feelings are around that, if the NCAA actually bothers to take them into consideration or not, or if they just say, you know what, we're already upending everything for the sake of appeasing all of you people. Can't you just be happy with what we're doing?
I'm sure that's the way a lot of people in the offices there feel. Like, we're giving you everything. Just leave us, I can't believe we're so ungrateful and blah, blah, blah. But that's always, that's the eternal push and pull between employees and management, even if, they're very specifically not employees, but in actuality are. So just interesting to see how that plays out and how that'll continue to play out. Let's go ahead and do Ask Us Anything. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that the Dubcast is sponsored by the Dry Goods Store at 11warriors.com. Drygoods.11warriors.com. Shirts, hats, stickers, all kinds of great stuff. Go check it out. Still haven't ordered the Anti-Wolverine Social Club. Need to do that. Gonna do it. Gonna use my staff discount if I still have it. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so let's go ahead and do Ask Us Anything. We want to remind you that you can ask us anything by sending us questions within reason. Well, you can ask us anything. Whether or not we'll answer it is really up to us. But you can send us those questions to dubcast@11warriors.com and dubcast@11warriors.com. This first one here is from Kevin, who wants to know, and says, guys, we are going to Urban Meyer's restaurant. Okay. Do you think Braxton Miller should open a restaurant? Yes, across the street from Urban Meyer's restaurant, and make it like compete with his in every single possible way. In fact, just make a carbon copy of his and see who goes to it more, Urban Meyer's or Braxton Miller's restaurant.
What would you call Braxton's restaurant? Braxton Miller's fast food.
No,
Braxton
you don't. No, it's got to be classy.
Spin on cuisine.
Yeah, no, you want it to be something like Braxton Miller, especially when he was in college, definitely played up the man about town kind of angle, right? Like he always had pictures of himself on private jets and wearing cool, suits and stuff. He's a very classy guy. I think you would have to have a very classy restaurant. I think it would be something in like. Sorry, I'm just gonna make a poop joke. It should be BM's. And then no, don't make it BM's. That's a bad name for
That's
a
the worst name for a restaurant I've ever heard.
Even worse than Urban's Tap House.
Hey, let's go to BM's.
Yeah, we're going to BM's. It's my favorite Mexican restaurant. Yeah, Braxton Miller should open a restaurant. I know we had Eddie George's restaurant. We talked about that last week. It was fine. It closed, sadly. But restaurants, they don't have a very long shelf life. It's very difficult to succeed in the restaurant business. So, yeah, Braxton Miller should open a restaurant. I don't know. Head fake, head fake actually would be kind of interesting. And then it would be like some kind of really like weird out there cuisine. Not weird, but, something like fancy, one of those like 5-plate menu kind of things. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, so next question here. This is from the son of Flubber on the forums there. So okay. I love it. So
we usually get real names on the Dubcast.
No, that's okay. I like the nom de plumes. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that.
All right.
All right. So if you could keep one person, so we're looking back on last season, right? If you could keep one person from the 2022 team for the 2023 team, would you keep one CJ Stroud, two Paris Johnson? I'm not going to read the rest of them because it's CJ Stroud.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, and he says that he thinks the knee-jerk reaction is Stroud, but he says if you pause and think about what the real weakness of the team was, Paris is probably the more incremental gain. It's hard to know the delta with losing Kevin Wilson, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, dude, CJ Stroud, he's a starting NFL quarterback. He was the best offensive player on his team as a rookie. He won Rookie of the Year. Like,
you know who doesn't give a pregame speech in Ann Arbor about not making mistakes and then immediately throw the ball, feed the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. for an interception?
Yeah.
CJ Stroud doesn't do that.
No.
So give me that guy.
Yeah, give me another year with CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison, and I think Ohio State probably goes on to look a lot better than they did. I understand the logic that you're trying to figure out here, that like, oh, well, they needed more offensive line help. It's CJ Stroud. It is 100,000% CJ Stroud.
Sorry, Flubber.
Yeah, sorry, son of Flubber. Yeah, no, it's CJ Stroud. Okay, so this is from Evan. He says, fun episode last week. Thank you. Continuing with the theme of movies, if they were to make a movie version of this season's Buckeyes, who would you cast in the leading roles, especially for like Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, and Chip Kelly? By the way, he says it doesn't have to be limited to current actors. For example, you could say 90s Chris Farley for Chip Kelly.
Okay. Well, I'd say Philip Seymour Hoffman for Chip Kelly.
Oh. Yeah, you got to throw in a guy like, yes. I
think he looks enough like Chip Kelly. And this is, again, I brought up Clip last week, and we were talking about it before the show, that new ridiculous Hulu series. Like they've got Lawrence Fishburne playing Doc Rivers. The guy they got a guy that looks like he's Cuban that's playing Blake Griffin.
The guy, the Blake Griffin casting is the most egregious by far.
We didn't even look at who they have as the Golden State Warriors. The guy playing Steph Curry, it doesn't even look close.
Oh my God.
That imitation Klay Thompson fan that shows up at all those Warriors games looks more like Klay Thompson than the guy playing playing Klay Thompson in the TV series.
That rules.
And then
That's
I
so
sent
good.
you the clip from the clipped
Yeah.
practice, and the joke that I made to you then was that none of these guys look like athletes. The guy playing Glenn Big Baby Davis makes Big Baby Davis look in shape.
Yeah.
Like it just brings you out of it when you have these athletic drama series where they you could just tell that none of these actors actually look like athletes.
Right.
So you need, when you're going to cast for these, I could care less about the level of acting talent as much as the resemblance. Yeah. So it's great that with
because you can't
Seymour
buy into
Hoffman,
it if they don't look. Yeah.
You
can't buy into it if they don't look anything like the guys they're portraying.
Right. So thankfully, you get best of both worlds casting Chip Kelly relative to Philip Seymour Hoffman or even Chip Kelly. But I can't really think of an A-list actor that I could accurately reflect Ryan Day. You brilliantly pointed out he looks like the long lost property brother that got foreclosed on. I'm one of those guys, maybe, that wouldn't be such a bad idea if they grow their beard out.
Well, for Jim Knowles, I was thinking, for our hippie defensive lineman guy, right, who's like quoting philosophy and, not eating meat. I would have said Creed Bratton, as he was in The Office. I think would have been a good choice.
A good one.
Actually,
he kind of looks like Gene Hackman in The Replacements.
He actually does look like Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman would be a really good choice for that.
Is Gene Hackman still alive?
He is still alive. He's a trillion years old. Gene Hackman retired from it. I don't know why I know this. Gene Hackman retired from acting 10, 12 years ago. Maybe
I feel like The Replacements was his last movie, even though it was from the 90s or something.
I don't know if the Royal Tenenbaums was after that or not. But anyway, he did. He retired from acting 10, 12, 15 years ago, something like that. And then he became a Western writer. He wrote all these Western novels and became actually really popular in that field for some reason. And now he just looks like, your typical 90-plus-year-old man, which is old, but that's fine. I mean, that's what people do. They age. When I was thinking of Chip Kelly, what just came to mind is Philip Seymour Hoffman in Moneyball. And not just the way he looks, but also his demeanor of just not wanting to deal with management whatsoever, not wanting any oversight, just wanting people to just leave him alone so he can do his job. I think that's basically Chip Kelly in movie form. I know it's obviously supposed to be a baseball manager from the early 2000s, but I think that hits him on the nose exactly. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman in Moneyball is Chip Kelly. I think that's I think that would work.
If you were to do last year's Buckeye team, I think maybe you could put Tom Holland in a fat suit and he could do Kyle McCord.
Problem is Tom Holland's 4 feet tall and Kyle McCord actually is tall for whatever else, other deficiencies he might have. He's a fairly large dude. But yeah, I think they kind of look similar enough. I think you could probably do something like that. There's probably some CW kid or whatever, if that's still a thing that can do it. I don't know. It's hard to say. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know who you would have for Marvin. The thing is, all these Hollywood actors are really short. You know what I mean? They don't have a lot of 6'5" guys running around. Liam Neeson is Kyle McCord. I don't see that happening. I don't know. He's tall. I don't, whatever. All right. So yeah, those are pretty good. If you have others, if you want to suggest others, go for it. Send them in. I am curious what you guys think. I think the players are harder to do than the coaches, but yeah, I think Property Brothers, it doesn't matter which one. You could do both of them.
Gene Smith.
Lawrence Fishburne.
No, come on.
No, I don't know. Gene Smith's really, he's really affable, kind of direct. I don't know. He's not.
Don't say Morgan Freeman either.
No, not Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. I mean, Gene Smith. I mean, I love Gene Smith. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hate it. He kind of has a hangdog look a little bit, though. He's not he's one of those guys who just seems relaxed all the time. And I feel like a lot of the Hollywood actors, especially as they get older, I think De Niro and all these other dudes, they dial it up the older they get, so people don't realize how old they are. like, you know, like a Samuel Jackson or something. Like Samuel Jackson's a pretty old guy, but like he's still Samuel Jackson. It's hard to imagine him as like a chill college administrator. So I don't know. Somebody's got a suggestion for those. I would really love to hear him, because I think I've like reached the pinnacle of my answer on this with Moneyball. Philip Seymour Hoffman, R.I.P.
I am sick and tired of these mucking Wolverines in this mucking Big Ten championship.
I am too. You should just bleep that, honestly. Don't delete it. Just bleep it. It's fine. All right. So this is from Jen. Hey, fellas. Hi, Jen. We are still a ways from perfect fall weather and football. Now that's essentially summer and miserably hot. What is your go-to frozen novelty treat? I enjoy several, but if I absolutely had to pick, I'm going with flavor ice, grape or lime. Ooh, good flavor ice flavor choices. Plus, if you're feeling spicy, you could pour a bit of vodka into those tubes. I'm sure you've only done that once or twice. Looking forward to more crypto tips and pop culture nonsense. Well, guess what? Dogecoin is on the rise. No, I'm buying GameStop stock. There you go. I'm putting all my money into meme stocks.
AMC.
Yeah, there. Whatever. Meow. I guess is that the kitten. Whatever. I don't know any of this stuff. What's your
cat?
Oh,
God,
is that what
you're? I can forgive your crypto knowledge, but your meme lore has been severely lacking lately.
You know what? I think what happens is as you approach 40, all that information leaves your brain in favor of like how to tie a fishing line, and I've lost all relationships.
Spare me from that life 10 years from now. I'm going to cherish...
I'd rather be dead.
I'm going to cherish my terminally online status while I still have it.
That's right. So what's your, especially living in Florida as you do, what's your go-to summer treat to beat the heat?
Like, here's the problem. I talked about my weight loss a couple weeks ago. Like,
sure, yeah.
You just end up staying away from a lot of that stuff, especially as you get older, and it just like, it doesn't come off as easily. It like sticks with you longer. So if I had my pick of like pretty much anything, I mean, I want, like swirl soft serve is always going to be the best.
It's a great choice.
That's the best one you can get. If you ever been to, I think it's Dairy Dream is the place in St. Clairsville. I don't know if it's still open or not, but that's I'm sure Tim Spencer's a big fan. So it's I think my mom worked there when she was growing up. So nice. I know that's a pretty good one. But you can't go wrong with a soft serve swirl. So that's probably what my go-to would be, even though I haven't had it in many years.
So I'm lactose intolerant, and I can still eat ice cream and stuff like that. I just have to take lactose pills, but I don't normally like eat it. It's not what I seek out, just because it's just, I'm like, I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm not gonna try to risk it. I'm not gonna roll the dice. So I really gravitate towards the ice kind of stuff. I loved Hawaiian shaved ice. Oh my God. I could just inhale like pounds of it. I love Hawaiian shaved ice. I like Italian ice. I think Italian ice is delicious. I love that stuff. We got Rita's up here. I don't know how big Rita's actually is. I'm sure it's a chain, but I don't know like where all it's at. But I love Rita's Italian ice. It's one of my favorite things in the summer. Basically anything that just cools you down rapidly, I'm all about. I mean, I chew on ice all the time. I just crunch it. I'm a big fan of that. So anything like that, any kind of slushy, I love ices. Anything along those lines, I'm a big fan of. So that's my go-to. I have tons of popsicles in the fridge. I eat tons of popsicles all the time. That's definitely my thing in the summer. Now, I will not turn up my nose at a dilly bar, especially, to reclaim my Midwestern heritage whenever I need to. But in the summer, it's whatever cools me down the fastest. And usually that's some ice conveyance. So I'm all about that. This last one here, this is from our good friend Alvin, who wants to know, quite simply, which new sport are you most excited about in the Olympics? And these are the ones he helpfully lists them for us. Breakdancing, making its Olympic debut. Sport climbing, skateboarding, and surfing are the new Olympic sports. So skateboarding coming over from the X Games, surfing coming over from the X Games. Sport climbing, which is not the same thing as like the speed climbing. It's more like the difficulty stuff, and then breakdancing, which should tell. I mean, it's breakdancing. So, which one of those are you most excited about, if any?
As a kid, I would have said skateboarding, but like
skateboarding's not that interesting to watch in a competitive.
Well, I think it was more interesting. It's weird. And maybe this is just us getting old, but I feel like you don't have the stars like that we did before. Sure. You know, it just doesn't feel like it's whether it doesn't feel like it was as popular or is as popular now as it was when we were growing up. And maybe that's part of, you know, because it was kind of a rebellious spirit thing. Well, and now that it has been legitimized by the Olympics, it's lost some of that.
It was a niche sport
quality.
At a time when being a niche sport could be something that where you could be the big fish in the small pond, right? And now there are tons of niche sports, but because of social media and how people interact with sports, I think you're competing with so many other things for attention, right? Outside of the main like four. And so it used to be like, oh, well, I'm, you know, like I don't get into football or baseball, but I'm a skateboarder. And so it was more of a cultural thing. And now I think it's lost a lot of that impact because everything is like that, you know, like there are no like little niches that people can get into socially and be like, okay, this is part of my identity. Skaters like I don't think anybody's like, yeah, I'm a skater. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think people are wearing their Airwalks and
but even then there's like no Tony Hawks anymore.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Maybe there is, and we're just like we're totally out of it. We're not hip anymore, but how many when I was a kid, like everybody wanted to be Tony Hawk. And there's no like figure I feel like anymore where like the kids now are aspiring to be that rebellious like figure. Right. It just doesn't exist. And rebellious, I don't even know if that's the right way to attribute it relative to Tony Hawk. It's not like he was popular because it was. I mean, I'm getting way off the rails here with this.
No, but he's not. Like, he's not out there smashing ATMs and like, you know.
There's not even a Bam Margera. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we don't even have that.
Right. Yeah, because as a sport, it's become much more legitimized. As you said, now it's in the Olympics, which is about as much, you know, legitimacy as any sport can get. So I am personally really excited. I'm excited for the sport climbing stuff because that's insanely hard. And if you ever watch it, it's just mind-boggling how people are able to accomplish anything and that stuff. I think it's just nuts. I don't think skateboarding is that interesting to watch in a competitive because it's all timed and they don't set up tricks. Like they don't have time to set up really cool tricks. Like it's volume. So they're trying to get as much done as they possibly can in a limited amount of time, which means they can't do a lot of the really cool stuff. They don't have multiple attempts at it. So it's like, okay, let's just do as much as we can. Surfing kind of sucks. Like surfing doesn't suck as a concept. It sucks as a spectator sport because they're surfing way out in the ocean and they've got these cameras trained on these guys from way far away. And you're like, what? I can't even see what they're doing. Also, another one of those things where it's hard to like really kind of, you know, score it. It's like, okay, you surfed. But I'm excited for the sport climbing and then the break dancing, mostly to see the reaction.
I think the answer is probably break dancing by default.
In part because I think it's going to be awesome, but also because I'm really excited for a lot of angry people who, you know, only watch sports like besides football, you know, once every 4 years anyway, just like getting unbelievably mad about the fact that it's an Olympic sport. Like they actually ever cared about the Olympics. It's like, this is not part of the sanctity. I personally think the Olympics should expand to even more ridiculous stuff. Like I wanted them to go back to the way they were when they started up again in the 1800s, where they had like, like painting competitions and spoken word poetry and stuff like that, and give out Olympic medals for that kind of stuff. Like, don't limit the Olympics to this small core range of human athletic endeavor. Like, make it as goofy as possible, in my opinion, because people will try to like reach the top of any competition you give them. So yeah, 100%. Like, make it as goofy as possible. I love that breakdancing is in it.
They need to bring back the speed walking death matches where people were peeing on themselves like near death.
That's right.
That's the most exciting thing they could bring back.
Yes. And they all have to wear the suit that Hal wore in Malcolm in the Middle when he got into speed walking, where he's like wearing the crazy helmet and the full body suit. So great questions this week. Keep sending those in to dubcast11wars.com. By the way, real quick, I want to, before we move on, this isn't a question, but we got a follow up. This is from a while ago. Okay. So a long time ago, we were asked on the 11 Dubcast, okay, can we help with a honeymoon, okay, a vacation? And finally, I got some response back here from a listener who actually did a honeymoon very similar to the one that my wife and I did. They went to Switzerland, they went to Italy, and they loved every bit of it. And they've got a picture here that they sent me. They DM'd me on Twitter here about them on the glacier looking at the Matterhorn. Looks like they had a beautiful day. Wow. So that's awesome. Congrats to you guys both for getting married and having an awesome trip. I'm glad that the 11 Dubcast could help out. That's awesome. So yes, keep sending those questions in. I'll keep sending you to other continents. All right, real quick, let's do a few things here. There was a article put out by 24/7 Sports about the Big Ten's biggest winners and losers in the transfer portal. This is by Brandon Marcello, who basically what he did is he averaged out the departures, like the rating of the departures, and then averaged out the rating of the newcomers, and then just split the difference. So Ohio State, for example, the people who were leaving, the players who were leaving had like an average rating of 87.24 by 24/7's metric. The average rating of the players that were coming in had 92.86, which is pretty freaking high by their metric. And so therefore, Ohio State's net gain was 5.62, making it the highest in the Big Ten. Now, I think there are a couple flaws with this methodology. Like, there's a difference between, losing, as Ohio State did, like 25 guys and bringing in 7, and losing 1 guy and bringing in 2, but maybe the 1 guy was really good and the 2 guys weren't quite as good, and then having the average be different. Like, I don't think that's a great way to quantify like how great the gain is. However, I really like this article because Michigan, out of the 18 Big Ten teams, Michigan is listed as number 16, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, so the methodology is actually very sound.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I was wrong, actually. It's great methodology. It's perfect methodology. Michigan lost 17 players and are brought in 9. And none of, not to crap too hard on Michigan. Some of the players that bring in are pretty decent, but overall, I think it is fair. I do think it's fair to say that they had kind of a weak transfer portal season. I think they were mostly just focused on keeping the guys, especially on defense, that they actually have, because their defense will be good. They have a lot of really good guys at defense. And had they lost even a couple of them, they could be staring at some huge problems. So I like any article that craps on Michigan. I mean, let's be real. But I also am not sure that this really cements Ohio State as kicking as much butt as it kind of implies. So I don't know how you feel about that, or, in general, where Ohio State stands.
Well, I mean, it glosses over what we were kind of alluding to at the top of the show, which is that, I mean, for all the preseason anointing Ohio State has gotten, there's still enormous questions on the offensive line that are going to have trickle-down effects into the performance for the rest of the position. And even in, comparing to Michigan, it's really the back seven that got affected the most by those portal departures that were just alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to be very, very good along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And
Right.
if you're not winning those battles, it's going to be very hard to beat that team. And that's been the narrative in the game for the last 3 years. So you want to get by that team, you got to get it done up front. And it remains to be seen if Ohio State is going to buck that trend or not. And the transfer portal didn't do that any favors. And we're still kind of hoping to see some more shoring up on the recruitment front in that department for years to come. So as as much as we poo-pooed ourselves for not being satisfied with all the success seen at every other level of the ball, there's still a lot left desired that we want to see improved on in the
Got to be
trenches.
Michigan. Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to beating Michigan. You beat Michigan, it's completely different. And I think that's what's cool, and that's what's also sometimes devastating about the rivalry, is that it all comes really down to that game and how it influences how you feel about, the football team for the next 360 plus days. Last thing I want to talk about, I just thought this tweet was funny. This is from Twitter, John. Or well, actually, it was originally. See, I hate it when people actually put it out there, and then they quote tweet it, or they just take the video and they say, "Oh yeah, this is crazy," but then it actually comes from somebody else. And in this case, the tweet that got really popular was taken from someone else who took that from someone else on Instagram. So that's
welcome
great.
to the era of stolen content.
That's right. So this is actually originally from Drizzy Sudge on Instagram, and it's like a video of all the Lambos in the Texas football parking lot, which I do really think is funny, just in the sense that 15 years ago, if you saw that would be the biggest scandal in college football. People would be writing so many obnoxious articles about it. They would be wringing their hands, wiping their brow, just like, oh my God, what's going on?
I remember people were wanting to burn down Columbus when they saw Terrell Pryor running stoplights in a 350Z.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. It's like, show us the receipts. And it just cracks me up that now this is kind of the normal, and some people are still having heart palpitations whenever they see it. I personally think it's awesome. I think it's actually really funny, and I'm sure at this point it's really just kind of an advertisement for a local Lambo dealer, but I don't know. I have no issues with it. I just think it's hilarious how angry it makes some people. That's really where I'm at. Because, I mean, I'd take a Lambo. I would immediately ruin it, but I'd take a Lambo if I were in college and somebody offered it to me. Hell yeah.
I think the players that are enchanted by that are probably not going to be the ones that are going to win you a national championship. So go ahead and go on down to Texas if that's what you need. Meanwhile, we'll leave our automobile recruiting pitches up to Rick Reichert. And,
that's right.
Keep reaping the rewards.
Driving a good American car instead of some
We're dealing, baby.
That's right. Well, this week, the 11 Dubcast was dealing with a lot of stuff. We talked about a lot of stuff over the course of this podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, George, for being here. I know you're not feeling great, but we will all see you next time. And until then, I'm Johnny.
I'm George.
And we'll see you then.
Take care, folks.